let me just show you again what a cuff looks like. There are pictures of it on the site. Here's one of the wider ones. This is 1.5 inches wide. This is 1 inch. No, this is a 1/2 inch wide cuff, although it looks bigger than it actually is because the weaving itself is a little larger than that. I would show you an interim size cuff, but the one that is the 1 inch cuff I wore to a friend's house, and it's now sitting on her night table in her guest bedroom. So let me just show you some of the materials that you're going to need to weave this piece besides a Mirrix Loom with a shedding device. Yes, you're going to have to use a shedding device because, in fact, you'll be weaving a mini tapestry. The cuffs, which you can purchase on our website, the brass cuffs, look like this. They're rather lovely. These are the 3 sizes that we sell: 1.5 inch, 1 inch, and that one's 1/2 inch. We'll also have a chart on the website telling you how many warps per inch you need for each size cuff. I spent about 3 weeks working this out. I had tons of failures, and I think I came up with the exact right measurements, bead sizes, yarn sizes, warp sizes. Let me start with the most important thing, the warp you'll need. And yes, we will have this available on the website next week. I just ordered it. It's a new thread from Caravan Beads. These are the 2 different sizes we use. For this project, I alternate between the 2. One is a little thinner, one's a little thicker. The one we'll be selling on the website is the microcord. They also have it in fine. I experiment with both. I think the microcord is probably the best size for this particular piece, so that's what we'll have available. The other thing you'll need is ultra suede, which I absolutely love. I just looked it up on the internet because I was wondering what it was. It is a woven fabric made out of polyester, but it has polyurethane, which sounds kind of gross, somewhere in it so that it doesn't ravel or unravel, depending on how you like to use that word. You put this on the inside of the cuff, and it feels great. Ultra suede tends not to get dirty. It's very, very soft. It's really wonderful stuff. The other thing that you will need is the weft yarn. Well, what do I use for weft yarn? That has been the really fun part. You can basically use anything that's beautiful. You want it to be a fairly thin weight of yarn. If it's too thick, your warp will show. When we finally do get these kits together, which again should be about next week, it will include my hand-dyed silk yarns. I can't really tell you what size this silk yarn is. It's fairly thin. I mean, it's way thinner than a worsted wool, for example. I bought this yarn from China, and I've been frantically and happily dyeing it up. There are 2 sizes that I have. This is a yellow one. I also use pearl cotton, which is a 2-ply, very long staple cotton. I love it. So I have a bunch of colors of that. And I've been using, let's see, you see right here on this piece, you see this sort of variegated kind of weave there? Well, that was gotten by using railroad yarn, which was popular a year or 2 ago. It's not so popular now. In other words, the big yarn companies are not selling this anymore, I don't think. Maybe some of them are. But you can get this just about anywhere I believe, because people are trying to sell off their old inventory of it. So any kind of novelty yarn that you think is beautiful will work in this cuff. I also have a big inventory of rayon floss, which I use as well. I have this in a bunch of beautiful colors. Let me show you the seal-on thread for warp that's not on a card. This is what we'll be using, probably the gray one. So basically you want a fairly thin yarn. If you can find some silk, you can go and get Embroidery floss would be perfect. I was hanging out in some store the other day looking at their embroidery floss, and it's, you know, it's comes in amazing, gorgeous colors, some variegated. That would be perfect for this. Any kind of silk you can find, you can combine threads of silk. You don't just have to use one. So the wonderful thing about this cuff is that if you don't buy a kit that I make, you can go out and get anything you love for it and play and play and play, and don't be afraid to fail. I failed a lot before I got to this formula that I'm going to show you. The next thing, obviously, are beads. Okay, let's see if we can get the camera to, okay, yeah, there we go. This is a box of 80 beads, 80 seed beads. Why 80? Now, when you start experimenting, if you put your warp closer, or you have a thinner warp or a thicker warp, you can incorporate different size beads. It's what fits with what you're doing. But in this particular case, we are using the 10 dent spring on the loom. So we'll have 10 warps per inch. And that set allows for the size thread I'm using for weft to be woven in without the warp showing. And it accommodates exactly size 80 beads. So you will have a size 80 bead between every warp. Perfectly. So this is a good starting place for you, and it's what I'm going to be doing. The set I'm going to be weaving at for a while until I break through and experiment with something else. The next thing we're going to do now is we're going to warp the loom for this particular piece.